Rohan lived in a world where tomorrow always seemed to carry today's burdens. His hours often melted away within the four walls of his small room, a space he filled with the comforting, crackling hum of his beloved radio. While his friends toiled in the paddy fields, their bodies hardened by the sun and honest labor, and his younger sister Priya rose with the first light, her nimble hands busy grinding grain for the family's daily bread and collecting fresh water from the communal pump, her every moment woven with quiet purpose for their shared needs. Rohan was a master of later. "Rohan, the irrigation channel by our paddy plot needs clearing." His father would call out from the doorway, his voice weary. "Time spent idling now often costs us double later, son. Remember the value of each hour." His father's old war wound from his youth had worsened with age, leaving him barely able to walk, let alone handle the heavy, back-breaking tasks. The family depended entirely on Rohan's youthful strength for the demanding work that kept their small plot fertile and their larder full. "Later, father. I'll get to it after this song," Rohan would murmur, adjusting the dial. He'd spend hours meticulously searching for distant stations, lost in the static and the faint melodies, his mind drifting far from the chores waiting outside his door. His time was consumed by the simple comfort of doing nothing, of endlessly tuning his radio to escape the present. He'd tell himself he deserved these moments of peace, that the important work would always wait, patient and unmoving. Time, he believed, was an endless, generous well from which he could draw forever. His mother, her voice soft but laced with persistent worry, would bring him tea. "The roof tiles, son. The rainy season is coming." "There's still time, Ma," he'd assure her, even as the sky, miles away, would bruise with a faint rumble of distant thunder. Then, one scorching afternoon, a strange, heavy quiet fell over the village. It was the kind of oppressive stillness that often settled before a big storm, a suffocating calm that whispered of impending danger. The village head, weathered and wise, called an urgent meeting. "The river," he announced, his voice grave, cutting through the heavy air. "The rains have been too much upstream. It is rising fast. We must reinforce the banks, starting with the old crossing point. Now." A collective gasp swept through the gathering, quickly followed by a flurry of determined movement. The old crossing point was their lifeline to the market town, to medicine, to the very supplies that sustained them. It was also where Rohan's family owned a small, vital patch of paddy land, closest to the river's edge. He had promised his parents, countless times, that he would fortify it. Rohan, still in his room, heard the distant commotion, the rising murmurs, the hurried footsteps, even faint shouts from the departing villagers. But he dismissed it. The radio was his world, its constant hum drowning out the urgency in those sounds, twisting them into mere background noise. He convinced himself there was ample time. He could do it later, perhaps tomorrow, when he felt more inclined. He paid no mind to the specific warning from the village head, too lost in his own world. As the sounds of urgent action faded, replaced by the rising wind, Rohan's mother stood by his locked door, knocking repeatedly, her voice growing desperate. "Rohan, the river. We must go to the field." But Rohan, lulled by the radio's hum, had drifted off to sleep, missing her frantic pleas. Driven by a mother's fierce worry, his mother rushed to their family plot alone. She found the river already churning, rising visibly, its muddy waters lapping aggressively at their land. The work of fortifying the riverbanks, hauling heavy sandbags, and anchoring supports against the surging current, demanded a specific kind of sustained strength and tireless endurance that only Rohan, as the able-bodied young man of the house, possessed. His mother, though determined, was simply not equipped for such a massive and urgent task. Overpowered by the torrent's growing strength, she could only watch for a few heartbreaking moments before the waters surged past her, forcing her to retreat. Later that night, the comfortable hum of Rohan's radio was abruptly silenced, utterly drowned out by a terrifying, relentless roar outside. The very ground seemed to vibrate. He emerged from his room, drawn by the overwhelming sound, to find his mother dripping wet, standing by the open doorway. Her clothes clung to her, plastered with mud. Her face, usually etched with the lines of hard work and quiet joy, was now a mask of profound, heartbreaking emptiness. The entire family felt the impact of the storm that night, the cold dread of loss settling deep in their bones. The harvest for tomorrow, his mother whispered, her voice a fragile, broken thread. It is gone. The river. It swallowed our field. There was no anger in her eyes, only a quiet desolation that ripped through Rohan's heart more fiercely than any floodwater. He saw the years of her toil, his father's sacrifices, their humble hopes for the next season, all jeopardized by his negligence, swallowed by the river of his wasted time. That night, listening to the relentless, mocking roar of the swollen river that could now be clearly heard from their home, Rohan didn't sleep. The radio, usually his companion, was a cold, silent lump. He saw every wasted hour, every deferred task, every moment he had frittered away while others built and grew. The lost harvest wasn't just food. It was trust, it was security. It was the visible, brutal consequence of his procrastination. The next morning, before the sun had fully risen, Rohan was the first one at the damaged riverbank, his shovel glinting in the dawn like a newly forged weapon. He didn't wait to be told. He didn't check his radio. He worked until his hands blistered, until his muscles screamed, until the sweat stung his eyes, driven by a new, fierce resolve that burned away years of apathy. He started rebuilding the shed, fetching clay bricks one by one, each heavier with meaning. He helped his father clear new pathways, guiding his father's slower movements with newfound patience. He helped Priya carry water, sharing the burden he had once ignored. The lost harvest was a bitter lesson, one etched not just in mud, but in his very soul. Rohan learned that time was not an endless well, but a fertile field that demanded constant tending, moment by precious moment. Each sunrise offered a seed of opportunity, and if left unplanted, it would simply return to dust. The days that followed were hard, filled with arduous work to recover what was lost. But with every deliberate action, with every moment he chose to engage rather than escape, the dust of unfulfilled dreams began to settle, revealing the solid, valuable ground of a life truly lived. He finally understood that the greatest treasure wasn't found in fleeting pleasures, but in the purposeful present-day building of a secure tomorrow for himself and those he loved.